Welcome back to the Green Machine, the Nature Aquarium Specialist. In this video you will see professional aquascaper and founder of the Green Machine, James Findley, creating a stunning planted tank in a huge 300 by 60 by 60 centimetre aquarium. Whilst creating this video, we were all deeply saddened to hear of the loss of photographer, designer and aquascaper Mr Takashi Amano, who was the pioneer that first started injecting aquariums with carbon dioxide, thus enabling Nature Aquarium to be possible. He was also founder and directed the company Aqua Design Amano, also known as ADA, who are the world's leading manufacturer of nature aquarium goods. Mr Amano has been an inspiration to the aquascaping community worldwide, as well to all of us here at the Green Machine. Without Mr Amano, the Green Machine would not exist as it does today. His legacy will live on in the hearts and minds and creations of all aquascapers. It is for these reasons that James Findley has renamed his aquascape in the footsteps of a giant, in honour of Mr Amano. Here you can see the finished, grown-in aquascape some 12 months after its initial creation. Now we'll take you back in time to the empty tank which is located in the Green Machine's gallery shop. For this creation, James pre-planned his design on paper. Here you can see him communicating his vision to some of the TGM team. For the hardscape, he chose to use TGM river pebbles along with ADA hornwood. James only ever works with 100% natural hardscape materials, as he likes to replicate nature as closely as possible. The aquascape posed an interesting challenge because it can be viewed from all sides, in a full 360 degrees. Usually tanks are positioned with their back to the wall and only have 3 visible sides. Not many aquascapers have worked on a 360 degree aquarium. Aquascapes are living 3D sculptures which change over time, and it takes skill to make them look good from all angles. We have other videos on our YouTube channel demonstrating other 360 degree aquascapes. The first stage in creating any aquascape is to assemble a substrate layer. Here you can see James adding ADA Power Sand Special as a base layer. ADA Power Sand Special has a very large surface area, which is ideal for encouraging colonies of beneficial bacteria to live in. These provide natural filtration to keep your aquarium healthy. On top of this is sprinkled ADA Penac P and ADA Penac W. Penac P intensifies the development of hair roots and soil microbes, thus intensifying the amount of nutrients available to the plants, whilst Penac P prevents the substrate from becoming anaerobic. Oxygen is essential for plant root health. James also adds some ADA Clear Super, which is made of highly refined activated carbon powder mixed with several nutrients, which promote the growth of beneficial nitrifying bacteria. This helps keep the water crystal clear. He also adds Bacter 100, which contains many kinds of microorganisms in a dormant state. This improves the conditions in the substrate and the aquarium water, and stabilises the ecosystem within the aquarium. He now adds ADA Tourmaline BC, which is a mineral compound of iron, aluminium, sodium, boron, lithium and magnesium, which are gradually dissolved, enriching the water and helping plant roots obtain essential nutrients. James now adds even more Power Sand Special on top of the substrate additives. This has 2 benefits. 1, it creates a healthy environment for plant roots, and 2, it builds up height in the substrate to aid in the layout. James often likes to build up great height in areas of his substrate layer to enable him to place hardscape that reaches the top of the aquarium, resulting in more dynamic layouts. James now places one of the main stones on top of this substrate. The placing of the main stone is very important because of the impact they have on the entire layout. It also becomes difficult to change their positions later in the creative process because other rocks may be leaning on them, and/or it may disrupt the substrate structure. As James places the stone, he uses a paintbrush to shape the substrate around the rock to stabilise it in its desired position. Before he started, James had sketched a design. However, this didn't include the specific rocks used in the aquascape. There is still an element of improvisation at this stage, despite his prior planning, as he picks the rocks one by one. This will have a massive effect on the overall aesthetics of the finished design. When working with super tanks of this size, it is always a challenge to place the hardscape, as it is impossible to position it yourself whilst looking at the aquarium, so working with a team can be helpful for tanks of this size. As more rocks are placed, James uses them to further support the surrounding rocks, almost like a dry stone wall technique. This can be fiddly at times to get right, so a degree of patience may be required. It is usual for the aquascaper to change their mind several times during this process, further adjusting rock positions or removing and replacing until satisfied. You can read about rock placement in several articles on our website. One such article explains fully the theory behind Iwagumi layout design, aquascapes which consist only of stones with no wood. Iwagumi aquascapes can be striking in their beauty and are easier to create than aquascapes that feature both wood and stone. Mr Takashi Amano was a master of aquatic layout design. James has drawn much inspiration from his work over the years. To further increase stability, more substrate is poured into the gaps around the rocks and then brushed into position. At this stage, the challenge is getting the first rocks to stay in their desired positions. James continues to select smaller stones and lay them across this area of substrate, which will eventually be full of plants. When placing rocks, one must keep in mind the spaces between where plants may be placed later. If you have experience with many varieties of aquatic plant, you should start to have ideas about what to place where at this stage. Larger plants may entirely mask hardscape, while smaller growing plants can often soften their edges and provide colour contrasts. There is plenty to think about throughout the whole process of creating a nature aquarium layout. The substrate is sprayed with water in order to help it settle and stick together. Another benefit to using Power Sand Special as the base layer is that its large, weighty pieces provide good stability to build hardscape on top of. This is certainly better for building on than using only the smaller, lighter grains that you will find in ADA Aquasoil, which provides a less stable foundation. Now that the main structure is in place, James begins adding the smaller surrounding stones one by one, constantly reviewing the progressing layout from all angles as he works. You can see that main placement of stones is about 16 to 17 inches high at its highest. James believes that if you can add height in a tank, it adds great interest and can better replicate a natural landscape. A second area of Power Sand Special is now added to the opposite end of the aquarium, in a similar manner to that you have just seen. Substrate additives are added as before. Once the substrate has been added, stones are placed on the opposite end of the aquarium, creating a second structural raised area within the design. James tried to create a natural feeling of flow from one grouping of stones into the other. This takes the form of a letter S when viewed from above, effectively creating a valley between the two groupings. Moving forward in time, ADA Aquasoil has now been added on top of the Power Sand. Aquasoil is a complete substrate and may be used on its own, but for optimum results and planted tank longevity, we always recommend using Power Sand Special beneath it. This area is now ready for planting once the hardscape is completed. Where extra height is required in a planted tank, James believes that the Power Sand Special is an indispensable commodity in achieving this. James always advises the aquascapers take their time over the hardscape placement, as it provides the bones of the aquascape upon which your design is built. An area is left clear of substrate where decorative sand will be added and no plants will be growing. Over time, the plants will find it hard to spread into areas filled only with decorative sand, as they are much less nutrition rich and will have less oxygen for the plants. This makes maintenance easier over time. Now that all of the stones have been placed, James adds TGM substrate supports, which he designed as a solution to an issue that aquascapers all around the world have been facing. It is difficult to create height in an aquarium without substrate supports. Over time, the substrate rolls down to the bottom of the aquarium, destroying your layout. TGM substrate supports are used by inserting them into the substrate around the hardscape, especially in steeper areas. Here you can see them slightly protruding from the substrate. James has left them showing slightly so that you can see how much he uses them. Since their invention, they have become a key component in James's layouts and have enabled him to experiment with great height in his layouts that would have otherwise been impossible. They will later be covered by brushing the substrate over to conceal them. Because of their very small exposed surface area, they will have minimal impact on planting. Here you can see the low-lying valley which weaves diagonally through the layout, contrasting with the two areas of high ground on either side. This creates a low, extending S shape along the whole length of the tank when viewed from above. This shape has an interesting effect when walking around the aquascape, as new micro layouts seem to constantly appear from each new angle and position. It is now time to add the decorative sand. James uses a long section of substrate support as a temporary barrier to keep the decorative sand and the aquasoil apart. This is manually held into position until there is enough sand to prevent it from moving. Again, a paintbrush is used to smooth the sand into position. The sand being added is 88 La Plata Big, which is a very bright white coloured sand with large gravel-sized grains, which brightens up considerably when the tank is lit from above. Notice how James and his team make the Aquasoil and La Plata sand the same height before the divider is removed. This prevents one side collapsing on top of the other, resulting in a messy edge. Once again, a jug is used for precision Aquasoil placement. Here, the La Plata big is being moved closer to the divider to match the height of the Aquasoil. A jug is a useful tool for pouring substrate material into key locations. Now a finer sand is added. This is called ADA La Plata sand, which matches the colour of the larger grain variety. The mixing of these two grain sizes creates a very natural effect often seen on sandbanks in nature. This is known as gradation. Some of the large grains are sprinkled into the smaller grains, and some of the smaller grains are brushed onto the larger grains to create the desired effect. Any pieces that accidentally land on the opposite side of the divider are manually moved back into the intended side. You can learn more about this gravel grading technique in the articles and journals on our website, so head over to www.thegreenmachineonline.com if you'd like to take a look. The substrate is sprayed with water to help it settle better, so it is less likely to move. Here you can catch a glimpse of James's hand-drawn plans for his layout. As the camera moves around the aquarium, you can see the final placement of the stones from all angles. The shapes of formations are visible. The very straight edge between the sand and the aquasoil will eventually soften when plants are grown in. Now it's time to add the ADA hornwood. James places each piece one by one, observing the impact each has on its layout and tweaking them until he is happy. It is extremely challenging to use both wood and stone together in an aquascape layout. One has to be very careful that both wood and stone work together in harmony, and that one does not negatively impact the aesthetics of the other. When a natural look is desired, it is important to make sure that the wood looks like it has been placed by the forces of nature, and not by the hand of man. To be more specific, wood should follow roughly the implied direction of flow within the tank. James is again playing with height within the tank by extending the structure of the layout by taking the hardscape so high that it actually breaks the surface of the water. Now you can start to see James's vision coming together, with a sense of directional flow created by the wood. Here you can see the wood working with the stones rather than against them. James makes small tweaks to the stones and wood while working on the layout, sculpting it until satisfied with the aesthetics and feel. Now the wood placement is finished. Once more the camera takes us right around the tank, showing many of the viewing angles. Note the two individual shapes created by the large pieces of wood that breaks the surface of the water, adding a certain graphic element to the scape. Before filling the aquarium with water, some of the wood is weighed down using some extra stones. This will help prevent any pieces shifting position during or after filling. Unlike other wood, ADA hornwood will sink on its own without prior soaking or weighing down. We have not found a piece yet that doesn't. Hornwood is very unusual in this respect and is also very beautiful in shape. We have not seen anything else quite like it. The aquarium is now filled with water so that the filter can be primed and started. Around 3 weeks later, the layout is ready for aquatic plants to be added. The reason for this delay is to allow time for the beneficial bacteria to build up in the filter and the substrate. This acts as an efficient, natural living filter and is essential for a healthy planted tank. ADA Aquasoil Amazonia has an ammonia spike for the first 2 to 3 weeks after adding water, which would be bad for the plants and livestock. But it is good for helping establish large colonies of beneficial bacteria which break it down to their benefit. James also enjoys this short waiting period because it gives aquascapers a chance to fully review their hardscape layout, allowing time for some changes to be made before planting if one chooses. It is also possible to plant on day one, but in this instance one would have to carry out a daily 50% water change for at least 2 weeks. Fish may only be added when the tank is fully cycled, approximately 5 to 6 weeks after planting, by which time the filter will be able to convert toxic substances into harmless ones. The first plants that James adds are various mosses and liveworts, which he attaches to several pieces of wood. In order to do this, he removes each piece one by one from the aquarium, ties the plants on, and then replaces them in their original location. James is using ADA Riccia line, wrapping it around the wood many times to secure the Versicularia dubbiana Christmas moss to the wood. We've sped up this footage so things develop faster. Now that this piece of wood is ready, James places it back into position in the tank. The same procedure is repeated for each piece of wood that he wants plants to grow on. Here, James attaches a terrestrial fern for immersed growth. This plant will grow above the water surface. Here, James adds Orbitis hiduloti, which will eventually provide some dense cover from above, which the fish will enjoy. 3 separate groupings of this plant were used to give a sense of continuity in the centre of the tank. Laganandri liboldi is prepared by removing rock wool from its roots using aquascaping pincets, and then small grouping of stems being teased apart. The roots are then trimmed before planting directly into the AD aquasoil substrate. James uses pincets for this task. Cryptocorine balancei is now added. My Chrysanthemum Monte Carlo has been prepared into small planting plugs. It is planted densely between the stones and will eventually grow into a full carpet and will have a softening effect on the whole layout. Polygonum SP Red is added at this point. Planting is now complete, and here you can see the aquascape on day one. At this stage, the aquascape looks a little sparse. Around 12 months later, we refilmed a now fully grown-in aquarium. The overall effect is stunning, the plants are lush, and the cascade of my Chrysanthemum Monte Carlo between the stones gives a very natural effect. The bright sand provides good contrast from the dark shadowed areas. James has replaced the Cryptocorine balancei with 4 groupings of Polygonum SP Red, which he thought matched the colour of the stones very well, and subtly mirrored the colours displayed in the Lagonandri. These 4 groupings of Polygonum pull the planting scheme together, as does the Bulpitis centrally. The fish you can see are leopard danio, zebra danio, siamensis crossocalis. Some Amano shrimp also inhabit this micro-ecosystem. We hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as we have enjoyed making it. You can find many more similar videos on our website at www.thegreenmachineonline.com. We also have many articles you can read, photos of many aquascapes and a Nature Aquarium online store where you can get everything you need to create beautiful aquascapes like this one.